Shirley here with Sirius Dallas Moon, and Friday, Uranus at the end of Taurus, almost almost new moon, conjoining Chiron and Aries. And I want to talk about something that Jupiter, oh, while it may be very challenging to listen, it is the story of many families and many couples. And while it might be challenging to listen, it might also be very curating and very healing because it can open us into the new moon from a different perspective and maybe healing of deep-rooted issues in society. So this is a story. I'm going to tell a story. And this is a story about a couple, and this couple grew in atmosphere, and they could be from same cultures or different cultures, same religions or different religion, but both of them grew in atmosphere where, if a man was lonely, he would go to where there is a red light. If a man wanted to insinuate that he wants to, and that would be kind of the go-to. But the women, they were never taught to concentrate on their own pleasure. In fact, some of them, also men and the women, as children, various degrees of not really honoring their child self and non-erotic self. Some of them may grow, whether after wars or in situations where it's not that there was neglect, it's just that people were trying to deal with whatever war, financial crisis, or whatnot. And so many people knew each other in those ways. And even though they liked each other and loved each other very much, when it came to intimacy, that was their. Now, from that, what grows is people growing distant. They may stay good friends. And then the people that were turning to maybe meet their needs elsewhere, maybe not. But then something arises, and different couples met it in different ways. Some people would have somebody suddenly have an affair, or somebody suddenly divorcing. Some people would sit around fertility and children. And whether it's couples, or whether they stay together or not, they could try to find some sort of even spiritual explanation. Something that will settle the soul of why the love fall apart, or why many fights, or each and their own issue. Completely unaware that what they've normalized in society, because they grew into that society. It's not that they made a decision, oh, I'm going to normalize sex trafficking today. They grew up in certain societies, but that was the status quo. And their children would grow up with certain type of deprivation. Some of them accessed it as, well, seeing marriage fall apart, or hearing health, that it was even, sometimes it was even extreme, but it doesn't have to be extreme. And even when the people would try, I don't know, or the children would try to connect with their parents, then their wounds around this love that was collapsing or going through upheaval, would arise, and those things, of course, affected the material reality. Because when people grow into society where their inspiration for intimacy is from people that were raped, this affects the material reality. And so when people become so vulnerable, they might not even believe that they are loved or they are approached with love. And people begin to have weird oscillations. And that can even cause, I'm not saying poverty, but it can cause financial challenges, because to be free financially, we need to be loving and feel loved. If we think about, let's say, what do we do for a living, or the way we run ourselves financially, then the motivation can come only from an open heart that can be vulnerable. And this makes direct connection to how people do business. And now what would happen is that for some of these couples, for some of these parents, and maybe for some children even, they would find all kinds of, whether spiritual or religious or philosophical, things that don't really alleviate and create more antagonism, while never really addressing the normalization of rape in society. I remember at Call to Consciousness, I listened to a story of a man who went from ultra Jewish Orthodox society out into the open. And when he was in the society, he was not even allowed to masturbate. Now, I'm not saying that harm cannot be caused from masturbation when people don't honor their erotic and non-erotic self. But this is because there's a previous and the minute he went out of this, he saw that his sex addictions were alleviated. Because the shame around sexuality was not there. And so in societies where parents would be told that the raped is promiscuous, or that when a person tries to recover from try to target or to traffic this person, even in therapy. In such societies, people would begin to wonder why people cheat if it is about cheating, or why people don't last, why marriages don't last, and nobody would address the issue of sexual boundary violation. This would also cause the separations. If people stay together, it was traumatic to their children. If people didn't stay together, the separations became almost lethal. And because sexual boundary violation harms the root, it harms the root chakra, but also harms our sense of connection or spirituality from a place that is of philosophy or whichever, in a way that is really honoring of the sense of self. And of course it affects the politics. Yesterday I listened to a person that left OTO, which is a form of Telemite magic from Aleister Crowley, and the particular order that he was, up until rank, let's say 5 or 6, was not so terrible. But people were taught that they are like a cell in the body of the organization, and they are as important as what they bring. Now, even when he explained this, he said, this might not be a bad thing if what the organization does is good. No, even if what the organization does is good, it cannot do good without honoring each individual self, independent of their current ability to bring something to the table. But for that, we need to understand that sex is not a service that can be traded. I don't mean that in what people call prostitution, which is human trafficking. I mean that also within communities or within relationships. This is what creates a yeast, a candida, but on that was cancer. It's not the only factor that creates cancer, let's say. And it also makes it difficult for people to, how should I say, causes food addiction or food avoidance. And then, of course, it causes the policies where the actual nourishing food is not there. See, when there is nourishing food, then having, I don't know, a piece of chocolate or a cookie is not something that is terrible. It's not going to ruin the health and the society. It is usually the lack of nourishment. But when it is chronic, then you begin to have yeast or mold. Even infants that have loss of sense of self. And those practices were serving, it was not were serving, they were creating hoarding of estates or material resources that in a situation where a person is loved, they will not be needing those particular material manifestations, but they will definitely have their own material needs as a given. So acknowledging this thing that is profoundly challenging. It touches at the self-trust of people. It touches at the awareness to patterns that may have been there through infancy, It touches at lineages that may have had occult practice or spiritual practice or beliefs. However, it creates a point of interference that can really change so many things that prevented people from loving and being loved. Whether they're monogamous or not, have relations that have trust in them. Communication, because the first thing that is violated is also ability to communicate. Psychic awareness to the realms that are actually loving and prosperous. And then the myriad of projections that all people, including myself, have upon each other, because rape erodes discernment. If I'm raped, I cannot see whether the person in front of me is rapist or not. I need for rape not to be, in order to reconnect with myself and with discernment. As same as everyone. It also, of course, affected our working environments, our residence, our housing, our connection to our lineage, to our motherlands, our political and also economic perception. In a world with no rape, solution for housing can be both making sure everyone is having house as a community, and making sure that I don't know, the labor of the people that construct the houses is compensated, and the people they can afford to pay for it, and then people that cannot, maybe they can solve this with charity. Both options work in society with no rape. There are many ways to solve a problem. I can think about the time, and let's go into another story. A person on their journey to recover from sexual boundary violation is seeking residence, seeking housing. They might not want to go to, or they think about the public possibilities, but those public possibilities need to allow for them to access their sensuality without being raped. And of course, not to have to rape in order to have a house, okay, if it is like not controlled. And they say, okay, well, what are the private possibilities? Because maybe if I heal and I reconnect with the essence of my erotic and non-erotic self, I have more passion for life, but also more love, and then I can, whatever I do from that love. Which can only be when I honor, when both I honor my yes, no, and maybe, and when there's no requirement for me to dishonor it, whether also when it comes to, let's say, finding the job that is compatible with my authentic self. Um, and if I go over the private sector and I try to find a place where, with what I can afford, and then they try to rape me. By the way, even when money is paid, because they want to take over my life energy. So the devil have more real estate, not with their energy, but with energy of tenants they raped. And this is happening to so many people around the world, not just women. There's some people that are even with the LGBTQ, they don't know if they're LGBTQ because this is their sexual orientation or because of ritual abuse that they've been through, and because of the trafficking of children, they needed children to be having sex with both men and women. And then within those cults, they were forced to have sex with both men and women. It's not sex, it's rape. But outside, if they would naturally try to reconnect and wonder, am I a gay man? Am I, do I like men? Do I like women? Do I like, what is sensuality that I do want? Then they would be in threat for being murdered without even knowing. It's kind of like a person doesn't even know if they're LGBTQ, but being LGBTQ could assassinate them, being woman could assassinate them, and being man that does not rape and is not raped also could assassinate them. Moon with Sun and Chiron and Aries will accentuate on that. The Sun exalts in Aries. And in a way, in that way, we can see that openly, to make money, we need to have the ability to have a vulnerable, open heart, identity and sense of self. Everybody knows when it comes to marketing, it comes to who do we buy from? People that don't need, that they don't, that are not pushy, and that we can trust them. And we can trust them when they're doing something that they really love. For example, I have a father that is very good in car engineering. I know for sure clients from him are able to trust him because he loves what he does. And so, but when people are raped, then the sense of self is eroded, and then it's difficult for them, even when they love what they do, it's difficult for them to run communication with people. And if they grow in such an environment that doesn't even tend to that, then of course it's affecting ability to make a living. If a person is raped, they feel unloved, even though the friends may love them, the family may love them, but if they were raped, they feel unloved. And the rape has to stop for them to be able to feel loved. For that, we cannot normalize rape. We cannot say that sex work is work when it is rape and trafficking. We cannot criticize the choices of the raped when there's no choice in the world that should lead anybody to being raped. Logic. Think about it, to have orgasm, we need to be able to trust that our partner will not rape us, even if they're mad at us, even if they are feeling hurt or betrayed by us, which usually means that there was something of their own sense of self, and maybe that was something with our own sense of self. Even if we wear a lot or wear nothing. And you see a lot of people when they try to recover from rape, sometimes they would wear almost very revealing clothes because they want to see, hey, that I'm not raped. They want to see that no behavior of them leads to them being raped. And society where any choice could lead to rape is society where extinction of societies from within, even if society is like dead alive.